They looked at her hoodie and saw a charity case. They looked at her skin and saw someone who didn't belong. When 19-year-old Maya refused to give up her first-class seat to a wealthy socialite, the flight crew thought they could bully her into submission. They threatened her, humiliated her, and even called the police. But they made one fatal mistake. They didn't check the manifest. They didn't know that the man they were about to call to complain to wasn't just a worried father. He was the man who signed their paychecks. Stay tuned, because what happens at 30,000 feet will satisfy every ounce of your desire for justice. This is the story of how one phone call ended a career and grounded a tyrant forever. The early morning fog still clung to the tarmac at JFK International Airport as Flight RA 4922 to London Heathrow began its final boarding procedures. Inside the cabin of the Boeing 777, the air smelled of recycled oxygen and expensive leather. This was the royal class of Regal Atlantic Airways, a cabin reserved for the kind of people who didn't look at price tags. Maya Sterling adjusted her noise-cancelling headphones, sinking deeper into the plush fabric of seat 1A. She pulled the hood of her oversized, charcoal-grey university sweatshirt further over her forehead. To the untrained eye, Maya looked like a teenager who had rolled out of bed and stumbled onto the wrong plane. She wore no makeup, her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and her sneakers were scuffed vintage high tops. She was exhausted. She had spent the last 2 weeks in Silicon Valley, shadowing the board of directors at Nebula Tech, her father's latest acquisition. At 19, Maya wasn't just a student. She was being groomed to take over an empire. But today, she didn't want to be the heiress. She just wanted to sleep. She tapped the screen on her phone, sending a quick text. Boarded. Love you, Dad. A moment later, a reply bubbled up. Safe flight, sweetheart. The London team will meet you at the gate. Try to rest. Maya locked her screen and closed her eyes, letting the soft jazz of the cabin soothe her. The flight was only half full, a rare luxury for a Friday morning. That peace lasted exactly 4 minutes. The commotion started at the galley entrance. It was the distinct, sharp clicking of high heels striking the floor with aggressive purpose. I simply do not understand why the lounge service was so slow. A shrill voice cut through the cabin's quiet atmosphere. I am a Platinum Diamond member. Do you know how much money my husband spends with this airline? Maya didn't open her eyes. She hoped the storm would pass. Of course, Mrs. Kensington. A flight attendant's voice soothed, sounding practiced and weary. We apologize for the delay in the lounge. We'll get you settled immediately with a glass of champagne. I don't want champagne. I want my seat, the woman snapped. Maya felt the presence before she saw it. The perfume hit her first. Something heavy, floral and suffocatingly expensive. Then, the tapping. A manicured finger poked Maya's shoulder, right through the sweatshirt. Maya slid her headphones down around her neck and looked up. Standing over her was a woman who looked like she had been cut out of a magazine for country club wives. Beatrice Kensington was likely in her 50s, wearing a Chanel tweed suit that cost more than most cars. Her blonde hair was sprayed into an immobile helmet, and her face was pinched in a permanent expression of distaste. "Excuse me," Beatrice said, though it sounded more like an accusation than a request. "You are in my seat." Maya blinked, still groggy. She checked the small digital display on the armrest. 1A. She checked her boarding pass in her pocket. 1A. I don't think so, Maya said calmly, her voice soft. I'm seat 1A. Beatrice let out a short, sharp laugh, looking around the cabin as if seeking an audience. This is first class, dear. The economy cabin is back through the galley and past the curtains. You must be lost. I'm not lost, Maya said, sliding her headphones back up. "I have a ticket." Beatrice's face went from annoyed to furious. She turned sharply toward the galley. "Steward, excuses me. We have a situation here." Maya sighed, pausing her music. She knew this tone. She had heard it in high-end boutiques when security guards followed her, but ignored her white friends. She had heard it in restaurants when hostesses asked if she could afford the menu. It was the sound of someone who believed their comfort was a natural right, and Maya's existence was an infringement upon it. A male flight attendant hurried over. His name tag read, Chad. He was tall, with slicked back hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He looked from Beatrice, radiating wealth and indignation, to Maya in her hoodie and sweatpants. The calculation in his eyes was visible. He saw a platinum member, and he saw a problem. "What seems to be the issue, Mrs. Kensington?" Chad asked, his back turned slightly toward Maya, physically walling her off. "This child is in my seat," Beatrice hissed, pointing a diamond-encrusted finger at Maya. "I always book 1A. It's the bulkhead. I need the legroom for my circulation. Tell her to move." Chad turned to Maya. The customer service smile dropped from his face, replaced by a stern, authoritative frown used for unruly children. "Miss," Chad said, his voice dropping an octave, "let me see your boarding pass." It wasn't a request. It was a demand. Maya pulled her phone out, unlocking it to show the QR code. "I'm in 1A. I paid for this seat." Chad glanced at the screen but didn't scan it. He barely looked at it. There must be a system error. Seat 1A is a premium designation. Usually upgrades are processed at the gate, but perhaps there was a glitch. "It's not a glitch," Maya said, her voice hardening. "And it wasn't an upgrade." "Look," Chad said, leaning in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that felt slimy. "We don't want to make a scene, do we? Mrs. Kensington is a priority flyer. I can find you a very nice seat in Economy Plus. Extra pretzels." He winked, as if he were doing her a favor. Maya stared at him. The audacity was breathtaking. "I am not moving to Economy Plus. I bought a first-class ticket. This is my seat." Beatrice groaned loudly, throwing her hands up. "Oh, for heaven's sake! Is she deaf or just stupid? I paid $6,000 for this flight. I'm not going to stand here arguing with a stowaway in a hoodie." "I'm not a stowaway," Maya said, unbuckling her seatbelt and standing up. She was tall, almost eye level with Chad, and my ticket didn't cost $6,000. "See?" Beatrice crowed triumphantly. "She admits it. She probably used points or some employee discount." "No," Maya said, her gaze icy. "It cost $12,000, because I bought the refundable flexible fare." The cabin went silent. A businessman in seat 2B lowered his newspaper. Beatrice's face turned a violent shade of red. "You little liar. Chad, get her off this plane. I don't feel safe with her here. She's aggressive." "Aggressive?" Maya repeated, incredulous. "I've been sitting here listening to music." Chad made his choice. He placed a hand on Maya's arm, a violation of protocol, and a massive mistake. "Miss, grab your bag," Chad said, his voice hard. "You are disrupting the flight crew and harassing a priority passenger. I'm moving you to the back, or I'm having you escorted off the plane by security. Choose." The air in the cabin shifted. It was no longer just a dispute. It was a spectacle. Maya looked down at Chad's hand on her arm. "Take your hand off me," she said, her voice low and dangerous. Chad snatched his hand back, but his ego was bruised. He straightened his blazer, his face flushing. He couldn't let a teenager in a hoodie talk down to him in front of a cabin full of wealthy passengers. "I am the lead flight attendant on this aircraft," Chad announced, raising his voice so the other passengers could hear his authority. "My word is final. You are being non-compliant." "Non-compliant?" Maya scoffed. "I'm sitting in the seat I paid for. She," Maya pointed to Beatrice, "is standing in the aisle screaming." Beatrice gasped, clutching her pearls in a cliché so perfect it would have been funny if the situation weren't so infuriating. "Heavens, do you hear her? The disrespect! This is what happens when you let just anyone into these cabins. It lowers the tone." Beatrice turned to the other passengers, looking for allies. "I'm sure you all agree. We pay for privacy and exclusivity, not to be harassed by street thugs." "Hey!" a voice came from across the aisle. It was the businessman in 2B, a man named James, wearing a bespoke suit. "The girl hasn't done anything. She showed you her ticket." "Stay out of this, sir," Chad snapped, pivoting to shut down the dissent. "This is a security matter now." Chad turned back to Maya. He pulled a radio from his belt. "Captain, this is the cabin. We have a disruptive passenger in 1A refusing crew instructions. I need ground security to the gate immediately." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. She wasn't scared. She knew who she was. But the humiliation was burning her skin. People were staring. Some were filming with their phones. She was being painted as the aggressor, the angry black girl, just because she existed in a space they didn't think she deserved. "You really don't want to do that, Chad," Maya said calmly. "I just did," Chad sneered. "You had your chance to move to economy. Now you're not flying at all. Grab your bag." "No." Maya sat back down and buckled her seatbelt. The mechanical click echoed loudly. Beatrice let out a shriek. "She's refusing to leave. She's hijacking the seat." "This is unbelievable," Chad muttered. He looked at Beatrice. "Mrs. Kensington, please take seat 1B for a moment. Once security arrives, we will have her physically removed, and you can have your seat. I will personally ensure she is banned from Regal Atlantic." Beatrice huffed, but sat down in the adjacent seat, glaring at Maya with pure venom. "You're going to jail, you know. Interfering with a flight crew is a federal offense. I hope you enjoy prison food. It's probably better than what you're used to." Maya ignored her. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone again. Her hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, but from adrenaline. She didn't dial 911. She didn't call a lawyer. She opened her contacts and scrolled to a number, saved simply as Dad. "Put the phone away," Chad barked, reaching for it. "No devices during an active security situation." Maya pulled the phone to her chest, dodging his swipe. "I am allowed to make a phone call." "Not when you are being detained," Chad yelled. The mask of customer service was completely gone. He was red-faced, sweating, and drunk on a tiny amount of power. "I'm not detained," Maya said. "The police aren't here yet, and until they are, I am a paying customer." She hit the call button. It rang once, twice. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was deep, warm, and familiar, but there was a professional edge to it, implying he was in a meeting. "Dad?" Maya said, her voice cracking just a little. "Maya, is everything okay? You should be in the air by now." Robert Sterling's tone shifted instantly from CEO to father. "I'm not in the air," Maya said, keeping her eyes locked on Chad. "I'm being kicked off the plane." "What?" Robert's voice dropped. "Why, is there a mechanical issue?" "No," Maya said clearly, "because a woman named Beatrice Kensington wants my seat, and the lead flight attendant, a man named Chad, just called the police on me because he thinks I'm a stowaway." Chad froze. The name Beatrice Kensington clearly didn't mean anything to the person on the phone, but the way Maya said it, with the calm, documented precision of a lawyer, made him hesitate. "Put him on speaker," Robert said. His voice was no longer warm, it was cold steel. "My father wants to speak to you," Maya said, holding the phone out to Chad. Chad laughed, a nervous, barking sound. I am not speaking to your daddy, unless your father is the chief of police or the president of the United States. I don't care." "He's not the president," Maya said. "He's Robert Sterling." The cabin went deadly silent. Even Beatrice stopped adjusting her pearls. "Who?" Chad asked, the name bouncing off his dense skull without registering. "Robert Sterling," the businessman in 2B said aloud, his eyes widening. "As in Sterling Global? As in the private equity firm that just acquired a 40% controlling stake in Regal Atlantic Airways last Tuesday," Maya clarified, her voice ringing clear as a bell. She looked Chad dead in the eye. "You're kicking the majority shareholder's daughter off his own plane." Chad's face went pale, a sickly, grey kind of pale. "That's a lie," Beatrice sputtered, though she sounded less sure now. "She's lying. Look at her shoes. A Sterling wouldn't wear dirty sneakers. Put him on the phone." Robert's voice roared from the tiny speaker, loud enough for the first 3 rows to hear. Chad's hand trembled as he reached for the device. He looked like a man holding a live grenade. "Hello?" Chad stammered. "This is Robert Sterling," the voice boomed. "Who am I speaking to?" "This is Chad, lead flight attendant." "Chad," Robert said, the name sounding like a curse. "I am currently looking at the live manifest for flight RA492. I see a Maya Sterling in seat 1A, ticket number 004492221, paid in full. Is my daughter currently in that seat?" Yes, sir. She is." "Then why?" Robert continued, his voice dangerously quiet. "Did I just receive a notification from my VP of Operations that a security team has been dispatched to remove a disruptive stowaway from my aircraft?" Chad opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked at Beatrice, who was now frantically pretending to read the safety manual. There was a misunderstanding, Mr. Sterling. Mrs. Kensington. We thought—" "You thought what?" Robert cut him off. "You thought you could bully a young black woman because you assumed she didn't belong. You thought you'd humiliate her to please a platinum member." "Sir, I was just following protocol for seat disputes." "Protocol?" Robert laughed, a harsh, terrifying sound. "Chad, listen to me very carefully. You're going to apologize to my daughter. Then you are going to apologize to the rest of the cabin for the delay. And then you are going to get off my plane." "Sir," Chad squeaked. "You're fired, Chad. Effective immediately. Pack your bag and get off. If you are still on that aircraft in 5 minutes, I will have you arrested for unlawful detainment of a minor. Do you understand me?" Chad dropped the phone. It tumbled onto the carpeted floor of the first-class cabin. Maya leaned down and picked it up. She dusted it off and put it back to her ear. "Dad?" "I'm here, honey. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Maya said, looking at a trembling Chad. "But Beatrice is still here, and she called me a street thug." "Is that so?" Robert said. "Put the captain on, now." Just then, the cockpit door opened. Captain Miller, a silver-haired veteran pilot, stepped out, looking confused. He saw the commotion, the phone in Maya's hand, and Chad looking like he was about to vomit. "What is going on back here?" the captain demanded. "Tower is asking why we haven't pushed back." Maya held the phone out to the captain. "It's for you. It's the owner." Captain Miller frowned, taking the phone. He listened for 5 seconds. His eyes went wide. He snapped to attention, looking at Maya with a sudden dawn of recognition. "Yes, Mr. Sterling. I understand. Yes, absolutely. I will handle it personally." "Understood." Captain Miller handed the phone back to Maya with 2 hands, respectful and gentle. He turned to Chad. "Get your things," Miller said quietly. "Get off my plane." "Captain, please, Now!" Miller barked. Chad scrambled, grabbing his flight bag from the overhead bin and rushing toward the exit without making eye contact with anyone. The captain then turned his gaze to Beatrice Kensington, She shrank back into seat 1B, trying to make herself small. "Mrs. Kensington," the captain said. "I didn't know," Beatrice stammered. "If I had known she was a Sterling, I never would have—" "That," Maya interrupted, standing up, "is exactly the problem. You only treat people with respect if you think they have money." "Mrs. Kensington," the captain continued, "Mr. Sterling has revoked your platinum status. You have been placed on the permanent no-fly list for Regal Atlantic and its partner airlines. You need to disembark." Beatrice's jaw dropped. "You can't do that. I have a house in Kensington. I have to get to London." "Not on this airline," the captain said. He gestured to the gate agent who had just arrived with 2 police officers, the very officers Chad had called. "Officers," the captain said, "please escort this woman off the aircraft. She is trespassing." The silence that fell over the first-class cabin after Beatrice Kensington was escorted off the plane by the very police officers she had summoned was heavy, thick, and suffocating. It wasn't the peaceful silence of a luxury environment anymore. It was the terrified silence of a room full of people who realized they had just witnessed a public execution of social status. The replacement lead flight attendant, a woman named Sarah who had been hurriedly promoted from the business class crew, approached Maya's seat as if she were approaching a sleeping tiger. Her hands trembled slightly as she held a silver tray. "Miss Sterling," Sarah whispered, her voice cracking. "Captain Miller asked me to bring you this. It's a vintage Dom Perignon, reserved for special occasions. And he wanted to know if you would prefer we clear the entire cabin so you can fly alone. We can move the other passengers to business class." Maya looked at the champagne, then at the terrified woman. She looked around the cabin. The businessman in 2B, James, gave her a small, supportive nod. The other passengers were aggressively staring at their screens, terrified to make eye contact. "No," Maya said, her voice weary. "I don't want champagne, and I don't want you to move anyone. I just want a glass of orange juice, and I want to go to sleep." "Of course, Miss Sterling. Immediately." Sarah practically ran to the galley. Maya sank back into her seat, but the adrenaline was still coursing through her veins. She pulled her phone out. It was blowing up. Not from the news yet, but from her friends. She realized with a jolt that she had forgotten to text her dad back after the captain took over. "I'm okay, Dad," she typed. "Police took her off. Chad is gone. We are pushing back now." The response was instantaneous. "I'm sorry you had to go through that, Maya. I'm launching a full internal audit of the hospitality standards immediately. No one treats my daughter, or any passenger, like that. Ever again." As the plane finally taxied toward the runway, 45 minutes late, Maya looked across the aisle. Seat 1B was empty. The ghost of Beatrice's perfume still lingered, a cloying reminder of the encounter. James, the man in 2B, leaned across the aisle slightly. "Hey," he said softly. Maya tensed. She wasn't in the mood for conversation. "I just wanted to say," James continued, holding up his phone, "I got it all. Everything from the moment she poked you to the moment the captain kicked her off." Maya frowned. "You recorded it?" "Every second," James said. "I'm James Thorne. I run a tech blog, but I have a decent following on X. I haven't posted it yet. I wanted to ask you first. Usually I wouldn't ask, but you handled yourself with so much grace, and they were monsters. The world needs to see this." Maya thought about it. Her instinct was to hide. She hated the spotlight. That was why she wore hoodies and no makeup. She wanted to be Maya, not the heiress. But she remembered the look in Chad's eyes, the way he looked at her skin and assumed she was criminal, the way Beatrice looked at her clothes and assumed she was poor. If she hadn't been a Sterling, If she had just been Maya from down the block, she would be in handcuffs right now. She would be in a cell at JFK, charged with trespassing or disturbing the peace, with an arrest record that would ruin her future. She looked at James. "Post it." James nodded solemnly. "It's uploading now. By the time we land in London, you're going to be a hero. And they are going to be finished." The flight to London was a blur of uncomfortable luxury. The crew checked on her every 15 minutes, bringing her snacks she didn't ask for, fluffing pillows she wasn't using. It was an overcorrection, a desperate attempt to save their own jobs by proxy. When the wheels finally touched down at Heathrow, the pilot's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to London. The local time is 8:15 p.m. We ask that all passengers remain seated. We have a special protocol to follow for disembarkation." The plane taxied to a remote gate, far away from the main terminal. As the engines whined down, Maya saw through the window why. A fleet of black Range Rovers was waiting on the tarmac. Standing next to them was a team of men in suits, and a woman Maya recognized instantly, Elena Vance, the director of Regal Atlantic's London operations. The cabin door opened. Elena marched onto the plane, bypassing the flight crew entirely. She walked straight to seat 1A. "Miss Sterling," Elena said, her face pale. "On behalf of the entire London team, I am mortified. Your father has been on the phone with me for the last hour. We are bypassing customs. We have diplomatic clearance arranged for you today to get you straight to the hotel." Maya grabbed her backpack. "Did you see the video?" Elena grimaced. "See it?" "Miss Sterling, it has 6 million views. It's the #1 trending topic in the world right now. While flying, While Black and Seat 1A are trending higher than the royal family." Maya stood up. She walked past the empty seat of Beatrice Kensington. As she reached the door of the plane, she looked back at James in seat 2B. He winked and held up his phone. He was live streaming her exit. "Justice looks good on you, kid," James called out. Maya stepped out into the cool London air, leaving the metal tube of prejudice behind. But the war wasn't over. It had just moved from the sky to the boardroom. 4,000 miles away, in the glass-walled penthouse office of Sterling Global in New York City, Robert Sterling was not looking at the view. He was staring at a 90-inch monitor on the wall. On the screen was the video James had recorded. It was shaky, but the audio was crystal clear. "I don't feel safe with her here. She's aggressive." Robert watched Beatrice Kensington say those words for the 10th time. His jaw was set so hard, a muscle twitched in his cheek. He was a man known for his calm, calculated demeanor. In the world of private equity, emotion was a weakness. But this wasn't business. This was his little girl. The heavy oak doors to his office opened. His executive assistant, Marcus, walked in. Marcus looked like he had seen a ghost. "Mr. Sterling," Marcus said quietly. "The board of directors for Regal Atlantic is on the secure line. They are panicking. Their stock has dropped 12% in the last 2 hours. They want to issue a joint statement." "No statement," Robert said, turning away from the screen. "Tell them to shut up and stay off social media. If one of them tweets an apology, I'll fire them." "Sir?" Marcus asked, confused. "Usually crisis management dictates, 'This isn't a crisis for me, Marcus. It's a cleaning,'" Robert said, walking to his desk. "Get me the file on the Kensington family. I want everything. Assets, liabilities, social connections, business partners. Everything." "I already have it, sir," Marcus said, placing a thick blue folder on the desk. "And Charles Kensington is on line 2. He's been holding for 20 minutes. Robert stared at the blinking red light on his phone. Charles Kensington, the CEO of Kensington Real Estate, a man Robert had played golf with at charity events. a man who thought wealth was a shield against consequences. Robert sat down slowly. He pressed the button. "Charles," Robert said. His voice was flat, devoid of warmth. "Bob. Thank God." Charles Kensington's voice boomed through the speakerphone. He sounded breathless, frantic. "Look, Bob, I just saw this ridiculous video. I am so sorry, really. Beatrice, you know how she gets when she's stressed. Low blood sugar, travel anxiety." "She didn't mean it." "She didn't mean to call my daughter a street thug?" Robert asked. "She didn't mean to demand the police arrest a 19-year-old girl because she was wearing a hoodie. It was a misunderstanding," Charles pleaded. "Bob, listen, we can fix this. Beatrice is willing to apologize. We can do a lunch, maybe a donation to a charity of Maya's choice. We can make this go away. We're men of the world, Bob. We know how these things work." Robert leaned forward, his elbows on the mahogany desk. "You are mistaken, Charles. We are not men of the world together. You are a man whose wife just racially profiled the majority shareholder of the airline she was flying on. And you think a lunch is going to fix it? Bob, come on. Don't let a personal spat ruin a business relationship. We have that deal pending for the Midtown Development Project. The financing is practically signed." Robert smiled. It was a cold, terrifying smile. "Marcus," Robert said loudly, knowing Charles could hear him. "That Midtown Development deal with Kensington Real Estate? The one worth $400 million? "Yes, Mr. Sterling," Marcus answered from the doorway. "Kill it." There was a silence on the other end of the line, so profound it felt like the line had been cut. "Bob. Robert. You can't be serious," Charles stammered. "That deal. My liquidity is tied up in the zoning permits. If you pull the financing now, the project collapses. I'll lose $50 million. "Then you better hope Beatrice has a lot of frequent flyer miles on another airline," Robert said softly, "because she just cost you $50 million. "This is vindictive," Charles shouted, his composure breaking. "You're destroying my business over an airplane seat. No, Charles. I'm destroying your business because you raised a family that thinks they can treat people like dirt and get away with it. You thought you could call me and smooth it over because we belong to the same clubs. You thought my daughter's dignity had a price tag." Robert paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. "The deal is dead, Charles, and I'm going to make sure every bank in New York knows why. Good luck with the zoning permits." Robert hung up the phone. He didn't slam it. He just pressed the button with a gentle click. He looked up at Marcus. "Now, get the CEO of Regal Atlantic on the phone. I want to know why a flight attendant named Chad was ever hired in the first place. And I want a review of every single promotion in that company for the last 5 years. If I find one more racist incident in their HR logs, I'm firing the entire executive suite." Marcus nodded, scribbling furiously on his notepad. "And Beatrice Kensington, sir? The police escorted her off, but they released her without charge since the airline technically didn't press formal criminal charges at the scene." "They didn't press charges yet," Robert corrected. "Call our legal team. I want to sue Beatrice Kensington for defamation, harassment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I don't care about the money. I want her in a deposition. I want her to have to sit in a room for 8 hours and explain to a court reporter exactly why she thought my daughter didn't belong in seat 1A. Understood, sir?" "Oh, and Marcus?" "Yes, sir. Make sure the press knows the lawsuit is coming. Let's see how her travel anxiety holds up under a media circus." Beatrice Kensington stood on the curb outside Terminal 4 at JFK. Her Louis Vuitton luggage was stacked around her like a barricade. It was starting to rain. She had been banned from the airline. The police had escorted her to the public taxi stand, treating her not like a VIP, but like a nuisance. She had tried to call her private driver, but he wasn't picking up. She tried to call Charles. The subscriber you have called is currently unavailable. Useless! Beatrice screamed at her phone, startling a pigeon. Everyone is useless. She opened her Uber app. She would just order a black car. It was undignified, but she had no choice. She typed in her destination, the Kensington estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. Account suspended. Beatrice blinked. She tapped the screen. A message popped up. Your account has been flagged for violation of community safety guidelines due to recent public reports. What? Beatrice gasped. I haven't even used Uber today. She didn't realize that the internet moves faster than real life. The video had been tagged. People had identified her within minutes. Thousands of people had reported her social media accounts, her business profiles, and apparently even her ride-sharing apps. Panic began to set in. Real, cold panic. She looked around. People were walking past her. A group of teenagers walked by, laughing at a phone screen. One of them looked up, saw Beatrice, and stopped. "Oh my God," the girl said, pointing. "That's her! That's the Corin from the plane!" "Hey!" the boy with her yelled, holding up his phone to film her. "Where's your first-class seat now, lady?" Beatrice grabbed her purse and turned away, hiding her face. "Leave me alone! Get away from me!" "Say hi to TikTok," the boy laughed. Beatrice abandoned her luggage cart. She grabbed her handbag and ran toward the line of yellow cabs. She had never taken a yellow cab in her life. They smelled. They were for tourists. She banged on the window of the first taxi in line. "Take me to Greenwich, immediately!" The driver, an older Sikh man with a kind face, rolled down the window. "Greenwich is far, lady. That is outside the city zone. It will be expensive. Meter plus surcharge." "I don't care!" Beatrice shrieked, ripping the door open. "Just drive!" As the taxi merged onto the Van Wyck Expressway, stuck in the bumper-to-bumper gridlock of a rainy Friday evening, Beatrice's phone buzzed. It was a text from her best friend, Cynthia, the chairwoman of the Manhattan Charity Gala. "Beatrice, I saw the video. I don't even have words. The board just met on an emergency Zoom call. We are removing you as chair of the upcoming gala. We cannot have this kind of publicity. Please do not come to the luncheon tomorrow. Your invite is rescinded." Beatrice stared at the screen. That gala was her life. She had spent 6 months planning the seating chart. Another text, this time from her daughter, who was at college at Yale. "Mum, WTF? Why is everyone sending me a video of you screaming at a black girl? My sorority sisters are freaking out. They're talking about revoking my legacy status. Why did you do that? Do not call me right now. I can't deal with this." Beatrice began to sob. Not tears of remorse, but tears of self-pity. Why was this happening to her? She just wanted her seat. That girl shouldn't have been there. It wasn't fair. The taxi hit a pothole, jarring her spine. "Watch the road," she snapped at the driver. The driver looked at her in the rearview mirror. He had been listening to the radio. The news was on. They were talking about the JFK incident involving the daughter of Robert Sterling. The driver recognized her voice. "You are the woman from the radio?" the driver asked, his eyes narrowing. "Just drive the car," Beatrice hissed. The driver pulled the car over to the shoulder of the highway. The rain was pouring down now. "Get out," the driver said calmly. "Excuse me?" Beatrice laughed, a high-pitched, hysterical sound. "We are on the highway. You can't make me get out." "It is my car," the driver said. "I do not drive people who treat others like garbage. My daughter is a student, too. She wears hoodies. You get out." "I will sue you. I will have your license." "Get out," he repeated, unlocking the doors. or I call the police. And I think the police are already looking for you. Beatrice Kensington, the Queen of Greenwich, the Platinum Diamond member, opened the door. She stepped out into the mud on the side of the Van Wyck Expressway. The taxi sped off, splashing muddy water all over her Chanel suit. She stood there, drenched, shivering, clutching her handbag, while hundreds of cars zoomed past her, nobody stopping for the woman who thought the world stopped for her. She dialed Charles again. This time he picked up. "Charles! Charles, you have to come get me. I'm on the side of the highway. A taxi driver kicked me out. It's raining." "Beatrice." Charles's voice was hollow. "Robert Sterling just pulled the financing on the Midtown Tower." "I don't care about the tower. I'm wet." "He pulled the financing, Beatrice. Do you understand? We are leveraged to the hilt. If that deal falls through, the bank calls the loans on the house, the Greenwich house." "What are you saying?" Beatrice whispered. "I'm saying don't bother coming home to Greenwich," Charles said, his voice breaking. "I'm locking the gates. The press is already outside. I can't be seen with you. Go to a hotel, if you can find one that will take you." The line went dead. Beatrice looked at her phone. The battery was at 4%. She looked up at the grey, weeping sky. For the first time in her life, she was truly, utterly alone. And the karma wasn't just hitting back, it was burying her. 6 months had passed since the incident on Flight RA-192, but for Beatrice Kensington, time had not healed any wounds. It had only infected them. The setting was a conference room on the 40th floor of a skyscraper in Lower Manhattan. It was the law offices of Sterling, Holt and Associates, the legal arm of Robert Sterling's empire. The room was cold, sterile, and smelled of lemon polish and fear. Beatrice sat at the long mahogany table. She looked different. The Chanel suits were gone, replaced by a modest, off-the-rack navy blazer that didn't fit quite right. Her hair, usually dyed a vibrant, expensive blonde, was showing grey roots. The financial freeze Robert Sterling had initiated had been absolute. Charles's business accounts were locked in litigation, their credit cards were maxed out, and the legal fees were bleeding them dry. Next to her sat her lawyer, a man named Arthur Pendergast. He was a strip mall attorney, the only one they could afford after the white shoe firms refused to touch the Kensington case due to the toxic publicity. Across the table sat Maya Sterling. She looked radiant. She wore a sharp black turtleneck and a blazer, her hair in braids. She didn't look like a victim. She looked like a CEO in training. Next to her was her father, Robert, and their lead counsel, a shark of a woman named Jessica Pearson. "Let's begin," Jessica said, clicking a pen. The videographer in the corner nodded, the red light of the camera blinking. "This is the deposition of Beatrice Kensington in the matter of Sterling v. Kensington regarding civil assault, defamation, and tortious interference." Arthur, Beatrice's lawyer, cleared his throat nervously. "Objection to the characterization of assault." My client merely tapped the plaintiff's shoulder. "We'll get to that," Jessica said, her voice like ice. "Mrs. Kensington, let's talk about your counterclaim. You filed a motion stating that Maya Sterling provoked the incident. Can you explain that?" Beatrice straightened up. She had convinced herself of this lie over the last 6 months. It was her only shield against the reality of her bigotry. "Yes," Beatrice said, her voice shaking but defiant. She gave me a look. When I approached the seat, she looked at me with hostility. It was a gang look. I felt threatened. I thought she might have a weapon. I was protecting the other passengers. Robert Sterling let out a short, incredulous breath, but he didn't speak. He just stared at her. "A gang look," Jessica repeated, writing it down. And this look justified you screaming that she was a street thug and demanding her arrest? I was under duress, Beatrice snapped. I have anxiety, and she was wearing that hood. Who wears a hood in first class? It's suspicious. I was just saying what everyone else was thinking. Actually, Jessica said, opening a file folder, we have sworn affidavits from every single passenger in the first-class cabin. Not one of them agrees with you. In fact, Mr. James, the man in seat 2B, stated, and I quote, "The only dangerous thing on that plane was Mrs. Kensington's mouth." Beatrice flushed red. He's a liar. He just wants internet fame. And then there is the matter of the racial slur, Jessica said calmly. The room went deadly silent. I never used a slur, Beatrice shrieked, slamming her hand on the table. That video doesn't show me using any slurs. You can't prove that. I said she was a thug. That's not a slur. It's a descriptor of behavior. You're right, Jessica said, leaning back. The video James recorded didn't catch a slur. He started recording after the initial confrontation. Beatrice smiled, a smug, triumphant smirk. Exactly, you have no proof. It's her word against mine, and no jury will convict a grandmother for being annoyed about a seat assignment. Jessica looked at Robert. Robert nodded. We thought you might say that, Jessica said. So, we brought in a surprise witness. Someone who was there from the very beginning. Someone who was standing right next to you. The door to the conference room opened. Beatrice turned. Her eyes went wide. Walking in was Chad. The former flight attendant looked terrible. He had lost weight. He was wearing a cheap suit and looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. Since being fired by Robert Sterling, he had been blacklisted from the aviation industry. No airline would hire him. He was currently working stocking shelves at a grocery store in New Jersey. Chad? Beatrice whispered. What are you doing here? Chad didn't look at her. He walked to the end of the table and sat down. Mr. Chad Miller is here as part of a plea deal regarding his own lawsuit, Jessica explained. We agreed to drop the civil damages against him personally if he testified truthfully today about what happened before the camera started rolling. Chad, don't you dare, Beatrice hissed. I defended you. I told them you were just doing your job. Chad finally looked at her. His eyes were filled with hatred. You ruined my life, lady. I lost my career because I tried to impress you. Mr. Miller, Jessica said. On the morning of the incident, when Mrs. Kensington first approached Miss Sterling, what did she say? Specifically before the video starts. Chad took a deep breath. He leaned into the microphone. She walked up to the seat, Chad said, his voice flat. She saw Miss Sterling sleeping. She turned to me and said, "Why is there an expletive in my seat? Get this expletive out of here before she steals the silverware." Beatrice gasped. "Liar, I never said that." "I wrote it down," Chad said, pulling a crumpled notepad out of his pocket. "I had to file an incident report draft before I got fired. I wrote down exactly what you said, because I was afraid I would get in trouble for it if I didn't document it. I was going to use it to kick her off, but then I realized I could use it to save myself now." "You traitor!" Beatrice screamed, lunging across the table. Arthur, her lawyer, grabbed her arm, pulling her back. "Beatrice, stop. Sit down. He's lying. He just wants money." "Actually," Jessica interrupted, "Mr. Miller passed a polygraph test administered by a forensic expert yesterday, and we have the audio from the cockpit voice recorder which, due to the open cockpit door during boarding, faintly picked up the disturbance. Our audio engineers isolated the frequencies. It matches Mr. Miller's testimony perfectly." Jessica placed a USB drive on the table. "We have you on tape, Mrs. Kensington, using a racial slur against a 19-year-old girl." Beatrice slumped back in her chair. The fight drained out of her. She looked at Arthur. "Do something," she pleaded. Arthur closed his laptop. He started packing his briefcase. "What are you doing?" Beatrice asked. "I'm withdrawing as your counsel," Arthur said. "I can't defend perjury. You told me you never used that language. You lied to me. I'm out." "You can't leave me." "I just did," Arthur said, walking out the door. Beatrice was left alone at the table, facing the Sterlings. Robert leaned forward. "Here is what is going to happen, Beatrice. You are going to settle. You are going to issue a public apology, admitting to everything, and you are going to pay." "I don't have any money," Beatrice wept. "Charles lost the business. We're mortgaged to the hilt." "I know," Robert said. "We bought the mortgage note on your Greenwich estate from the bank this morning." Beatrice stopped crying. She stared at him in horror. "You own my house?" "Technically the bank owned it," Robert corrected. "Now I own it. And since you are 6 months behind on payments, I'm beginning foreclosure proceedings immediately. You have 30 days to vacate." "Where will I go?" she whispered. Maya spoke for the first time. Her voice was not angry. It was just final. "Economy," Maya said. 1 year later, the fall of the House of Kensington was not just a news story. It was a cultural event. The Seat 1A trial never made it to court because Beatrice settled, but the settlement terms were public. The apology video she was forced to record was played on every news station from Tokyo to Toronto. It was a humiliating 4-minute clip where Beatrice, stripped of her makeup and her pride, admitted to being a racist and a bully. But the internet, as it often does, didn't forgive her. The meme of her face, twisting in anger on the plane, was still circulating. She was the face of entitlement. But the real story was what happened after the cameras turned off. It was a rainy Tuesday in Queens, New York. Far away from the manicured lawns of Greenwich, a city bus screeched to a halt at a crowded stop. The doors hissed open. A woman stepped off, struggling with 2 heavy plastic grocery bags. She wore a faded raincoat and sensible shoes. She looked tired. Her face was lined with the stress of survival. It was Beatrice. Charles had divorced her 3 months after the foreclosure. He blamed her for the loss of his empire, though in truth, his business had been shaky for years. Beatrice was just the match that lit the fuse. He had moved to Florida with a younger woman. Beatrice got nothing in the divorce settlements because there was nothing left to give. Only debt. She walked 2 blocks to a small, cramped apartment complex. She fumbled with her keys, entering a lobby that smelled of stale cigarettes and bleach. This was her reality now. No maids, no drivers, no first class. She took the elevator to the 3rd floor. She had a job now. She worked as a receptionist at a dental clinic in a strip mall. It paid $18 an hour. Her boss, a young Dominican man named Dr. Perez, was kind, but he was strict. If she was late, he docked her pay. Beatrice had learned to be on time. She had learned to say, "Good morning," and mean it. She had learned that when you are invisible to the world, you have to be kind just to survive. She unlocked her apartment door and set the bags down. She turned on the small TV on her counter to have some noise while she cooked pasta for one. The news was on. And in business news today, Sterling Global has announced a massive new initiative, the anchor said. Maya Sterling, the daughter of CEO Robert Sterling, is launching the Open Skies Foundation. This non-profit aims to provide travel grants and legal protection for minority travelers who face discrimination. The foundation is funded by the settlement money from the infamous Kensington lawsuit. Beatrice froze. She watched the screen. There was Maya. She looked older, wiser, and powerful. She was standing at a podium at JFK Airport, the very place where Beatrice had tried to ruin her. "We believe," Maya said into the microphones, "that dignity is not a luxury class item. It belongs to everyone, and if anyone tries to take it away, we will be there to fight for you." Beatrice watched as the crowd cheered. She saw Robert Sterling standing in the background, looking at his daughter with bursting pride. And then the camera panned to the board of directors for the new foundation. Sitting there, in a sharp new suit, was James, the tech blogger who had filmed the video. And next to him was the taxi driver who had kicked Beatrice out on the highway. He was now the director of transportation for the foundation. Beatrice turned off the TV. She looked around her small, dim kitchen. The silence was heavy. She thought about being angry. She thought about screaming, but she was too tired. The fight had been beaten out of her. She realized, with a clarity that only rock bottom can provide, that she had done this to herself. Every moment of entitlement, every sneer, every time she thought she was better than someone else. It had all been a loan she took out against her own soul. And now, the bill had come due. She sat down at her small table and ate her pasta. It was cold. Meanwhile, at 35,000 feet, Maya Sterling sat in seat 1A of the new Regal Atlantic flagship aircraft. The plane was beautiful. But it was different. Under her father's direction, the Royal Class had been rebranded. The curtains separating the cabins were gone. The service was universal. Respect was the new company motto. Maya looked out the window at the clouds. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from her dad. "Proud of you, sweetheart. You turned a nightmare into a legacy." Maya smiled. She didn't reply immediately. She put her phone down and picked up her book. A flight attendant approached her. It was a young woman, nervous, her first week on the job. "Excuse me, Miss Sterling?" the attendant asked. "Can I get you anything? Champagne? Caviar?" Maya looked up. She saw the anxiety in the girl's eyes, the fear of making a mistake in front of the owner's daughter. Maya smiled, a genuine warm smile. "No, thank you," Maya said. "Just a bottle of water is fine. And please, take your time. I'm not in a rush." The flight attendant relaxed, breathing a sigh of relief. "Thank you, Miss Sterling." Maya watched her go. She adjusted her hoodie. Yes, she was still wearing a hoodie, and leaned back. She had won. Not just the lawsuit, but the moral war. She had proven that power wasn't about shouting the loudest or having the most expensive ticket. Power was about standing your ground when the world tried to move you. The plane banked left, soaring higher into the golden sunset. Maya Sterling closed her eyes, and finally, truly, slept. This story serves as a brutal reminder that in the age of information, character is your only true currency. Beatrice Kensington thought her status made her untouchable, but she learned the hard way that when you strip away the money and the titles, all you are left with is how you treat people. And if you treat them like dirt, eventually you will find yourself in the mud. Justice doesn't always come swiftly, but when it comes, it hits hard. Maya used her pain to build a shield for others, turning her trauma into triumph. Beatrice, on the other hand, became a prisoner of her own prejudice, serving a life sentence of mediocrity. Wow. I don't know about you, but seeing Beatrice working that receptionist job at the end, that is the definition of satisfying karma. It just goes to show, you never know who you're talking to. So maybe just be a decent human being, right? If you enjoyed this story and want to see more dramas where the arrogant get exactly what they deserve, do me a huge favor. Smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a story. I want to hear from you in the comments. Do you think Beatrice's punishment was enough, or did she deserve even worse? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.